idea how rare there are. There are less than 200 individuals left in the wild. Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. But I mean, it's not all bad news. We're working with an organization called the World Parrot Trust. We're breeding blue-throated macaws. Those offspring will be sent to Bolivia. Well, hopefully they'll meet the wild populations. And we can see so for generations to come. They're going to be coming in from all over, so you keep your head up. Wow. That is awesome. So you can see we've been joining quite a few more birds. They're only going to be here for about a minute, so if you didn't get a picture of them flying in, this is their flight path on their way up. So I'll give you all the chance to get into that flight path with your cameras. I suggest if you have video slow-mo to do that. It's a really cool shot. If you want to learn more about our conservation efforts, you can visit an easy website to remember. It's parrots.org. Parrots.org. But for now, we're going to see what these birds do best. I think we can all agree that is when they take flight.
Monkey, monkey.
Like, couldn't we just jump from there to this tree?
Yes, sir.
Oh, look at it.
Really had to go. What's next?
No, there's a live spot. Get out.
Ensuite, on repasse la laine, tu vois-tu? Vois-tu?
Pero la fila no. ¿Dónde fue?
Well, we can always try. Like down there, I just like
No, ya los que vi.
Two, not 16.
Seatbelts on, guys, straight away. First thing we need you to do is get those seatbelts on as soon as you sit down. The one seat's gonna be wet. It doesn't matter. Yours?
Porque si no hay que cogerle la panza a la mamá.
Yours? Tug on the loose end of the seatbelt. Tug on the loose end of the seatbelt. Stay seated, stay buckled in.
Ya, Ana. Ahí sí toca quitarlo un poquito para acá. Para que no le caiga. Ahí está bien, mira. No te quería subir.
Yo quería mojarme hasta la cabeza.
Así tú dijiste que no.
Hi guys, the dragon is not going to be out yet. It has to be at least 6 degrees in their habitat. Do they have haters inside where they are? Yes. And when we come out, we see
¿Cómo se que lo estoy apuntando? Bye.
These are called Malayan flying fox bats, or giant flying fox. They are one of the largest species in the world. Their wingspan can reach about 6 feet. They can weigh as much as 2.5 pounds. And this morning they have some watermelon up there. That is one of their favorite foods. They like anything with a high liquid content. Bats are also good pollinators. Fruit bats pollinate some things, not entirely of the fruit bats, but predominantly things like coffee and cocoa are pollinated by fruit bats.
Mira, ahí hay una. ¿Las ves?
Mom, what's supposed to be in there?
So we brought him together with the female. I was pregnant for 3 months. The gestation period is about that. We'll have the cubs come out in a few months. They're none of the
Yeah.
Very good job. I like the stride. There you go. Well done. Yes. No, they're not visible. They won't be out for 3 months. Yeah, we're hoping they'll come out in 2 months. They have their swimming lessons to go through before we're able to say, yeah, we're okay to get them out.
Excellent.
And they're leaving that up to mum, that decision. So.
Where's my cushion?
Definitely put on a show for us during the
right here. Come on over here. I'm gonna toss this grape up. You're gonna fly up and catch it. I'm kidding. You're a sweetheart. What's your name? What was it? Naomi. Okay, face your audience, Naomi, including your family. There you go. They're trying to film us. There we go. Take this grape. There you go. Put it in the palm of your hand. On the count of 3, I want you to pop it straight in here, okay? All right. Come on, Miles. We got a juicy dragonfly. Are you ready, sweetheart? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I hope you're videotaping that. That was amazing. High five. You rocked. And happy Halloween. You can have a seat, sweetheart. Now, folks, I should tell you that that is exactly why there are no longer flying grapes in the forest of Africa. They don't stand a chance with birds like Miles. Buddy, you were so great. I got a couple more treats for you. All right, now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go back into the window. The same one you came out of. All right, all the way inside. Left of the light. You can't. I see what you're doing. You're starting to sun. And you can get more sun in the back. Get in here. Now, if you folks like Miles, you're in for a treat because we have all kinds of birds to share with you today. We have some big ones, some small ones, even some strange unusual
Tour, there you are! I've been looking everywhere for you, dudes. You keep losing me. You're supposed to stay with the flag. This is the 5th time today. I'm not taking it personally because I know you love me, but I'm the tour guide and you're the tour group. You got to stay with the group. You can't go up on your own. Oh, no way. Uncle Charlie, dude, you left me behind too. Oh, it's okay. All right, just gather yourselves up. We're going to get back on the trail. I have so much to show you. All right, let's go.
Hello.
Hi. Let's go.
Can I help you?
No, just gather my tour group together. We'll get out of here.
Sir, I'm starting a show here.
A show?
Yeah.
You're doing a show now?
Yeah.
Sorry. Let's go.
I'm sorry, who are you?
Who am I? I don't know who I am. I am the god of all things tourist. I am Guano Joe!
Hold on. Guano Joe.
No. Guano Joe! Oh, that's it, kid. Yeah, you got it.
The world famous traveler and explorer, that Guano Joe.
The one and only.
I can't believe I didn't recognize you.
I can't believe it either.
I'm a big fan.
Are you?
Yeah, my name's Ashley.
Hello, Ashley.
Nice to meet you.
I'm sure it is.
You know what?
What's up?
I got a great idea.
What?
Your tour group is seated.
They are.
So you should stay and help me with the show.
Who can help with the show?
Like a celebrity guest.
Oh, Charlie did. Celebrity guest.
Perfect. You're gonna help me present the birds. Now our next bird is coming out in just a moment. He's so smart.
Birds?
Birds.
You said birds.
I did.
I'm sorry, I'm much too busy to help with your show.
How can you be busy?
I'm very busy.
It's 20
I'm a
minutes.
busy.
You okay?
Those are angry birds.
Those are chickens.
Those are angry chicken birds.
Okay. What is going
I
on?
have a bomb.
What is that?
FOB. Fear birds.
Wait, you're afraid of birds?
Yes.
I mean chickens?
Yeah.
It's okay, this is Power Collar Reef, and these guys are found in Africa, and they're foragers in the wild, and scavengers, so they'll eat
No. No, stop that. No. That's my flag. Tell me stop that.
Not
No.
do not, no! No!
Oh! He took my flag.
See that?
He took my flag.
I know.
I have a stick now. Who's gonna follow the stick?
I don't know.
Not Uncle Charlie.
You know what?
What?
I'll give it after the show.
Dude, after the show, I need my
No,
flag.
it's okay. I know where likes to hide things. It's actually kind of cool. What are you doing?
You're-
Ah! Paul, look at you. What'd you do with the flag?
No.
You know. Okay. That
He
happened.
took my flag and my stick. Does he work for the IRS?
Can we just take it as a sign?
Assigned?
You should stay.
No way, I want to stay.
No, we all want Joe to stay, right? Actually,
Really?
excited.
That dude didn't clap for me at all. Oh, dude. All right, I'll stay.
Okay.
I love to see a little parrot on a bike. A little birdie riding on a bike.
What are you doing?
I'm a birdie on a bike.
Oh. Well, we don't do that here.
You don't?
No, we feature natural behaviors.
That's not natural?
Nothing about what you just did was natural.
Dude, it helps with the love handles.
Okay. But seriously, have you ever seen that in the wild?
Yes, I have.
When?
In the 70s. It's a lot of really weird stuff back then. I think that dude knows what I'm talking about.
No words on bike.
No?
No, it's not better.
What?
Very talented parrot. He's coming out center stage. You're gonna love him.
You bringing a parrot up here?
Yes.
I have to hide him.
You're dying.
Hide someplace safe.
Oh, look at you running. You know what? Hey, get back on stage.
I'm hiding.
I'll hide you.
Where?
By a tree.
I'll be safe by the tree.
Yeah, birds hate trees.
Awesome.
Oh, I got a better idea.
What?
You can help me.
What?
Pick me a volunteer.
Oh, volunteer. I'm all about that.
I need somebody between the ages of 8 and 10.
8 and 10.
You want to come up on stage.
On stage.
But you need to be good at math.
Good at math. Okay, all right. All right. There's not a lot of hands.
I know.
All right, go over there.
In the blue sweater?
Go this way, go this way, go this way. Okay, go that way. That's good too.
Already made a commitment.
All the way down here. All the way down here.
So you see those car steers? Head all the way over there. Yeah, you're on the right path. Now, the rest of you, how many of you have heard of a talking parrot before? Quite a few of you. I may surprise you to say, talking is actually a natural behavior for a parrot. But they're not talking like you and I are. What they're doing is mimicking sounds that they hear in their environment. Thank you, Scott. Out in the wild, live the sound of parents and flock mates. But sometimes if a parrot lives near home, that's when they can start to mimic you, and that's what sounds like talking. We have an excellent mimicker. He's an African gray parrot, and his name is Keebler. Can you say hi, Keebler? Hi, Keebler. Oh. That is mimicry right there. Now, Joe, who'd you find?
We have Matthew from the far off and exotic land of Nevada. Nevada. Nevada.
Hey, Mom, it's not from Nevada. They call it Nevada.
Well, you say Nevada and I say Nevada.
Okay, we're off track here. Okay, focus, people. Too much sugar so far. Okay.
Okay, it's Halloween day.
Okay, so we're gonna have a math competition. So you're gonna answer to your microphone before Keebler answers into mine. Are you ready? Yes. Okay. Lots of sugar. Okay. First problem. What is it? 1 plus 3. 4.
Wow, that bird's fast.
That was good though.
Yeah.
Let's call that a warm up.
Let's warm up.
Yeah, we're all warmed up now. Okay,
We're
next
gonna
problem.
figure out how to say Nevada.
What is 7 minus 3? 4.
Wow, that was fast.
Oh, that was really close.
That's really close.
Okay, let's try something harder and
Okay.
slow this bird down.
All
We're
right.
doing really good.
Yeah.
Okay, next problem. I've got 12 divided by 3. 4. You were like on his tail. You're doing such a good job. How about we do this?
What?
Since it's Halloween, it's a holiday.
What's that?
I'm Gigi.
You're Gigi?
I don't know what that
I don't
means,
know
but
what
that's
that
awesome. Okay.
You're Gigi. Okay, then you're Gigi.
What we're gonna do, we're gonna throw out the old math problems and do one more for winner takes all.
Okay.
We're all behind it, right?
Yeah. Go, Gigi, go.
All right, for the win. What is 2 plus 2? 4.
Yeah.
Yeah!
Not you. Not you.
Oh yeah! And you get a sunflower seed.
Yeah. That's $35. I don't know if they have those in Nevada.
All right, so what we're doing, we're actually playing a game. This bird is super smart, but he doesn't know math. Watch this. What is 100 plus 3? That is
That's not right. That's not right.
You see, what he knows are Q. So if I wanted to say the number 4, I just say is Q, which happens to be 3. 3. 3. See how that works?
Yeah.
I bet it'll work if I say something that sounds like it's Q. Like Keebler, what do you say if there's a golf ball over a tree?
Hey, that works.
Works. What do you think about it, but not so much in your home.
Why?
They bite really hard.
Yeah.
They scream really loud.
Yeah.
And did you know a bird that size could actually live to be over 60 years old?
60 years old?
Yeah.
That's the terror that never ends.
Not for 60 years.
Oh. Is it gone?
He's gone.
Okay, that's a smart bird.
Yeah.
So, tour group parrots are the smartest birds in the world.
Smarter than parrots or crows and ravens.
Oh, really?
I got a smart bird to show you.
Where?
Right here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Right here?
Yeah.
I'll be over there.
Okay. I'll introduce the rest of you to Harley. Now, Harley is a pied crow, and to show off how smart Harley is, I need the help of an adult volunteer that has a $1 bill and a dollar whistle. We're gonna go with a white sweatshirt. I think it's your birthday. White sweatshirt. Yeah, it's your birthday. Stand up for me. Do you have a $1? Do you have a $1? Yeah. Go back there. You're doing too much. We just need your money. Go back to your seat. All right, take that $1 out for me. Hold it between your thumb and forefinger, out to your side, just like this. There you go. Harley, stand by.
Maybe Harley's
Too
got
much sugar for Harley, too. Okay. What do we do when we find money? Yeah, take it. Where does that go? In my pocket! Thank you! Happy birthday! Alright, who over here has $20? I'm kidding! We're gonna bring your money back, okay? We're gonna bring your money back! Alright, stand up! Put your arm out to the side just like this. Perfect. Alright, he's gonna drop it into the palm of your hand. You're gonna wrap your fingers around that money so it doesn't blow away. Oh, look at that. Big round of applause for my amazing volunteer, Harley.
That's something you don't see every day. Somebody at a theme park getting money back. Good for you, lady. Air five. Air five. Dude. That's a smart bird, too.
Very smart.
Uncle Charlie, all birds are smart.
All birds are smart.
Uncle Charlie, not all birds are smart.
That does bring us to our next part, but I need your help.
What?
Would you pick me 2 volunteers?
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
2 people with cameras or video cameras
Yeah.
who want to come up on stage for the photo opportunity of a lifetime.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Dude in the blue. You're right there. All the way down.
Far set of stairs again. There we go. Now, the rest of you, I'd like you to finish this saying for me. It goes the wise old what? Owl. Exactly. Now, owls are not as smart as we would like to believe, but they don't need to be because they have awesome adaptations that help them to survive in the wild. They've got great big eyes, great for staying at night, hearing better than almost any creature out there. But what you might not know, and we're about to demonstrate, is they fly almost completely silently. Who'd you find?
I have Rich and Carla, and guess what?
What?
Carla just got engaged. Let's see the ring. Let's see it.
Well, that's pretty, but not to this gentleman. Yes, okay.
Not to this gentleman? Are you sure?
Okay. I'm pretty sure. Come on,
It
have a
could have
seat.
just happened.
Too much. Go ahead and have a seat.
Are you?
Oh my,
Dude.
look at that. Me too. Have a seat.
Yeah?
Have a seat.
Okay.
I train birds, not people. Okay. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna be joined by an owl. He's gonna come out of this window and he'll fly to Scott in the back. You guys see Scott. He's
Scott.
Yeah, Scott. Okay. Now, I would suggest a video. Hit record when he's back there with Scott. If you're trying a still shot, focus your camera right about here, okay? When you see him there, snap the picture and then get the cameras out of the way right before the impact.
I'm going to Nevada.
Okay. Nevada. At the last second, he swoops up and lands on this tree stump behind you. Closely hardly ever misses. Let's meet him. His name is JJ. He's a greyhorn owl coming out of this window right here. He's gonna fly all the way to Scott in the back. There you are.
Wow.
You're getting so many up close encounters today, my friend. Okay. Now he's gonna fly right out. Whoa! Good job! You're not on the right end of the bird though, so come here. Yeah, don't sit on that too long. Come here. That's where they poop from, yeah. Alright. You can turn around, take a quick photo before he heads inside. Great horned owl. You see where they get the name, those little tufts and feathers up there, right?
And we now know where he poops.
I'm all about teaching.
Yeah.
Alright, let's have a round of applause for my amazing volunteer.
nice?
Come on, they're
No
not
way.
brave.
No,
Yeah.
no.
You know what?
What?
I think you could be brave.
Why?
I'm a baby bird.
Really?
No,
I'm not afraid of a baby bird.
I'm not calling Joe.
You know what?
What?
You should have your little baby bird land on my hand.
No.
Come on.
No.
Tour group, what do you think? A little baby bird on my hand, right? Tour group wants it. Come on, we can make it a Disney moment. I can sing to the little bird like a princess, like, oh, oh. Bird.
Count me in. I like this. Okay. Stand here. And then what you're going to do, call him out that window.
Yeah.
It's Baby Ray.
Baby Ray.
And I'll be over here if you need me.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Hey, look.
What?
I'm a little teapot. Baby Ray.
It's not gonna be a baby.
Where are you going? That's Baby Ray. Baby Black Vulture. Okay. They didn't think you'd be that scared of them. They eat carrion.
What's that?
They eat carrion.
Baby what?
No, carrion. Rotting carcasses of animals that die in the wild.
Ew.
I know, it sounds gross, but you see, an animal dies and a bird like Ray will come along, he'll clean up the mess, stops the spread of disease. We actually call them nature's recyclers.
That reminds me of recycling to do myself.
Recycle.
I think I just did.
Well, if we all recycle in our own way, this earth would be a much cleaner place. All right, buddy, come on down here, clean it up, and then you're going to run inside when you're all done. Look it up. Oh no! That was Baby Ray, our baby black vulture.
Okay, tour group, here's a little tip from me. If that bird comes near you, look alive. So just trying to help Uncle Charlie. That's a big scary baby.
He was a little big.
That's a little big.
Something smaller.
Yes, please.
I got a gorgeous hawk. He's gonna fly in the back. Everyone's gonna
What?
grab you this.
No! A hawk, my people. That's a bad idea.
Why?
It's a bird of prey. They have teeth and claws and go, ah! That's what the hawk says.
Really?
I also know what the fox says.
What does the fox say?
You should ask my people they want to see a hawk.
You should ask your people. All right, who wants to see the hawk fly? We're gonna meet him. His name is Orion. He's a Harris hawk coming out that window up there, flying straight back to the sky. Now, Harris hawks, they're found in the desert southwest of the United States. So places like Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, great places to find birds just like him. And Harris hawks are unique among birds of prey because they live in hunts in a small family group. You see, 2 or more of these birds will team up together. They'll take down something the size of a jackrabbit. That is an excellent survival strategy for those harsh desert environments where you find them. And they need that extra edge for survival because up to 75% of all birds of prey hatched in the wild make it through their first year of life.
Why?
Some of it's due to natural causes, but some people shoot these birds.
People shoot the hawks?
They do.
I thought that was illegal.
It is illegal. It's a shame people do it. They help control rodent populations. That's just one of the many reasons that we love having them around. Take a look at stuff on the way out there. All right, now he's gonna come back right in front of you. Quantum Joe, don't you worry. Don't duck, he flies lower. All right, buddy, you are fantastic today. Heading on inside. That was Orion, our Harris hawk.
Really close.
Right?
I kind of like that bird. What did you say about it being beneficial?
Yeah, a hawk the size of Orion could actually eat up to 1,000 mice in 1 year.
1,000 mice? Seriously? That explains a lot.
Like what?
I haven't seen a mouse, a rat, or a gopher here in on the 4 months.
Well, they haven't set up a station.
Tell me there were rats everywhere.
I know, I think it was about a month ago. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there were rats all over the place.
Yeah, we have rats.
Yeah, but luckily, you know, the hawks came in and sometimes owls. You do remember! I mean, it's tough to forget.
Oh, they're red bitty eyes to you in the dark.
Whiskers.
Oh.
The whiskers get me every time.
Oh, the little hands. They have like little hands.
Very exciting.
Don't worry. The rat problem is behind us.
around in Savannah. We have a crown crane. He's right over there with Taylor. Now, folks, he's gonna fly to me on stage. Check out the 6-foot wingspan. We'll watch out for the landing gear. Thank you. This is Fraser.
Oh, Fraser Crane.
No, I'm doing it. That's okay. All right, so crown cranes get the name from the tuft of golden feathers on their head because it looks like a crown. Hey, Joe.
What?
I have extra treats. You should feed them.
You want me to feed a bird?
I do.
I don't want to feed a bird.
Oh, come on. We all want Joe to feed Fraser, right? All right, come on over. Make your hands into a bowl. So I'm going to fill that bowl. You'll be fine. I'm right here with you. Take this. All right, Fraser. He's so excited.
I'm feeding a bird.
You are.
I'm feeding a bird. I fed a bird! Oh, I wouldn't mind seeing one of those guys out in the wild.
That would be an amazing sight to see, but it is so tough to find.
Why?
Well, crown cranes struggle with a lot of things in the wild, like pollution, habitat loss. Some people put out poison for crown cranes.
Can't imagine a world without beautiful creatures like those.
Neither can I. That's why it's up to all of us to help protect them.
And protect them we will, right everybody? Good job, group. I had no idea it was so tough for birds out in the wild.
Oh, it's tough on a lot of animals in the wild, but I don't want to bring everyone down. There's a lot of bright spots on the conservation horizon.
Like what?
How about my favorite story? It's the one about the national symbol of the United States of America, the bald eagle. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Hope. And Hope is a living symbol of one of the greatest conservation success stories of our time. You see, not long ago, it was feared future generations wouldn't get to see a beautiful sight like her out in the wild. But that's when something amazing happened. People took notice and they took action. They cleaned up the waterways where bald eagles fish and stopped using a chemical pesticide called DDT, which was one of the main reasons for their decline.
So you're saying that people like my tour group made a difference for the eagles just by taking care of the environment?
Yes, Joe, and their efforts paid off, so much so. Bald eagle numbers have risen so high that they're no longer considered in danger of extinction.
That's an awesome story.
It is. It's a wonderful conservation success story, but it's also a great example of the power that we have to help save wildlife by simply cleaning up our own environment.
Dude, what a day.
Right?
I lost my flag. I got a crane. Did you see that? I found hope.
I'm so proud of you.
Can't believe I fed that big bird.
I know, it was only the biggest burger.
I know. That was pretty scary.
You know what you did?
What? Wait a minute.
Whoa! Hold on. Do you have crate food left?
Well, I have some trail mix.
I'm gonna see if I'll make a trade with you. Come
All
over
right.
here and put your hand out for that bowl just like when you fed the crane. What is that?
Hey,
Put
come
that
on.
over here.
Where are you going?
Or the opposite direction. That's cool too. Come here. Huh.
Hey,
Come on. You know what he's doing?
he's walking away from me.
He is, that too. What he's doing though is foraging. That's that natural behavior I was telling you about. That's why they're really successful. Alright, drop it in there.
Look at that. That little guy. He brought my flag. It's the thought that counts.
No, you really made a connection with the birds today.
The world's our greatest gift. It's up to all of us to take care of it for everyone.
Well said. And as humans, we're the only species on this planet with the ability to do that. It just takes simple things like conserving, recycling, and supporting conservation efforts.
Like the Disney Conservation Fund right here at Disney's Animal Kingdom.
Exactly. Programs like that can help save beautiful creatures from all over the world. Like a looping green-winged macaw. That was cool. We have an itty-bitty little mustached parakeet over there with Taylor. A gorgeous military macaw and a spectacled owl with Flannery. Now, I've heard it said once before, we have not inherited this planet from our parents. We're borrowing it from our children.
Ladies and gentlemen, Uncle Charlie, the heart and spirit of all living creatures share a common connection. On behalf of all of us here, especially our friends at Feathers, I want to leave you with this wish. May your hearts take flight and your spirits soar forever.
Namaste. Thank you. You put a definitely enjoy the rest of your day in Anandapur. Happy Halloween!
It's Halloween.
Cutting your Mickey waffle, what would you use? What is his knife? His beak, yeah. So his talons is what grabs, so like our fork, we grab our food with it, and then his beak is what pulls it apart, just like our knife would. Cuts it up, makes it all nice and good. So that's how I like a little, you know, something you'll go home and remember that, right? Mickey waffle, his talons and his beak, yeah. All right, guys, now I've been talking a lot, so I want to know what you want to know. So ask me some questions. If you have any questions about our show, Twister here, me, you can ask me anything too. I don't care. Yeah. What is their lifespan? So Twister, out in the wild, he could live up into the teens, even 20s. But here with us, he can live a whole lot longer, 35, 40 even. Disney has great healthcare benefits. No, I'm only halfway kidding. So when birds and any animal really that lives with people, they live a whole lot longer because think about it. They don't have any predators coming after them. They have all the food that they need and the healthcare really. If something's wrong with Twister, we immediately take him to the vet. Make sure everything's checked out. He doesn't have to pay for medicine. He doesn't have to do, you know, free rent. Like, come on. Disney's a great place to live, guys. Great place. Are the females smaller? Yeah. So in people, it's kind of like, you know, the men are normally bigger and the females are smaller. Yeah, sorry. But it's kind of the opposite. So Twister is a male, but he's kind of big. For a male, so we have a smaller male that's the same species, super little, and then we have a female that's actually bigger. So yeah, it's kind of the opposite in owls.
Sunday, Sunday.
I'll be your safari guide here on our journey through Harambe Wildlife Reserve. Just a couple safety announcements before we get going too far, and you need to make sure that everyone remains fully seated at all times, keeping all hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the vehicle. Also, lap sitting is definitely permitted and a-okay for our little ones. However, parents, you are not Rafiki. Children, you're not Simba. And unfortunately enough, my truck is not the Festival of the Lion King, so please do not go lifting your children up into the air. It's not very safe and would not be a good time, so let's just avoid that at all costs. Now we are just going to hang tight right here just until we get some clearance from the warden, and while we are hanging tight, feel free to take a look above your heads at the animal spotting guide. I spent about 3 hours last night coloring that in. Colored pencil, right? Anyway, that's a pretty all-inclusive list of a majority of the creatures here in the reserve. We don't usually see all of them, but we get some pretty good. If you take a look to the right-hand side, there is a chestnut-bodied creature with some black and white striped legs. We should get a better view once we clear that little bush area. That animal is called the okapi. Now, the okapi, believe it or not, are the only known living relative to the giraffe. They have the exact same skull and hoof structure as their cousins the giraffe, and male okapi even have ossicones on their heads. That's a fancy way of saying those little fuzzy covered horns. They were believed to be mythical creatures by the Western world up until about 1901, when Westerners had finally discovered them, because up until then all that they had seen or heard of okapi were just little drawings from native African tribes. Now friends, I want you to keep your eyes peeled in this clearing on our left, because there is a black rhino. Black rhinos, unfortunately, are critically endangered creatures. There are less than 5,000 of them remaining in the entire world. They are poached for their horns, which some people falsely believe hold a medicinal value. However, their horns are actually made out of keratin, the same material as our fingernails and hair. So it's about as medicinal as biting your nails. I do see another creature coming up just on this hill on our left. We should get a less hindered view once we pass this bamboo, but it's a tannish, grayish creature. That animal is called the greater kudu. Now it does look like those are all female kudu, just since none of them have horns on their heads. Male kudu will grow horns up to 6 feet in length. Now friends, we've already seen some pretty awesome creatures, and we're just at the beginning of our journey. So I think now is as good of a time as any to head on out of the little Ituri forest and head on down to the Safi River. The Safi River is an entirely different ecosystem, and this one homes creatures who really enjoy the water. They'll use the water to both help regulate their body temperatures as well as keep them as hydrated as possible. A good way to spot creatures here is to keep your eyes peeled along the water for any dark, shadowy looking areas. Now, I'm not seeing much to the right, but have no fear, we can cross the river. Alright, take a look to the left, guys. If you see that shiny rock, it's not actually a shiny rock. That is the back of a hippopotamus. Now, hippopotamus is the Greek word for water horse. So fittingly enough, these water horses do spend a majority of their days in the water. They can remain fully submerged for up to 8 minutes without taking a breath of air and eat about 95 pounds of vegetation a day. Now those white birds also towards the left are called pink-backed pelicans, and they get their name because the skin on their backs will turn a light pinkish, tannish color during mating season. They are colonial nesters, which means they'll be in groups anywhere from about 30 to up to 200 at a time. Now friends, we've done a very good job so far, but mostly for my own sanity, I am going to take this moment to remind everyone to please remain fully seated the entire journey. And I bring this up again now because coming up in a moment on our left are going to be some Nile crocodile. Now the bridge we're going to cross is very noisy, so as long as everyone's fully seated, I'll remain quiet as we cross. cousins, the American alligator, they can grow to be 18 to 20 feet long and have a bite force of over 2,000 pounds per square inch. That bite force will help them crush the bones of their prey, which can consist of animals up to 2 times larger in size than they are. So on that note, I am very thankful to announce that we have left the Safi River. I'm also thankful because we've entered into my favorite area of the reserve, the savanna. Now the savanna is home to many cool sights to see, just like this baobab tree along our right hand side. Baobab trees are also commonly referred to as upside down trees because they do sort of look like they're growing upside down with their roots in the air. However, they're right side up, I can promise you that much. They just remain leafless for a majority of the year, and that's to help them stay as hydrated as possible during even the longest drought periods. Now, because of the landscape of the savanna, you might be able to notice some creatures a little further in the distance, and if you do, don't worry, I see them too. But I'm only going to mention the animals as we are closest in proximity to them, so no one has to be squinting in the distance to get some good sights. Now, the landscape of the savanna is also one of my favorites because it's fully maintained by the creatures themselves. The hoofstock animals will graze on the grass and sort of be like natural lawnmowers. Giraffe will prune the trees and eat any low-hanging leaves. And elephants are like natural bulldozers. They'll knock over the trees, eat their roots, and create pathways for the animals and my truck alike. Take a look to the left-hand side. There are some brown creatures with some long, thin horns. Those animals are called sable antelope, and they're the mascots here at Harambe Wildlife Reserve. They are an incredibly territorial creature, known for sparring amongst one another with their horns to show signs of dominance. Now, those horns are also a pretty good defense mechanism. If any predators were to sneak up from behind them, they could bring their heads back sharply and quickly and just keep away any unwanted friends. Along the right-hand side, though, are some white-bearded wildebeest, also known as gnu, spelled G-N-U, referring to the low grunting sound that they make, and they are a part of the world's largest land migration. About once a year, their herds will join together and form to be up to 1.5 million wildebeest. They'll venture on the world's longest land migration of over 750 miles. Now, crossing the road that's now on the left is a creature with some very, very long horns, and this animal is called the Ankole cattle. Also known as the Watusi cattle, it is the only domesticated animal here in the reserve. But while they are domesticated, it's not actually for their milk or for their meat, but instead they're used as a sign of wealth amongst many African farmers. So the more cattle that a farmer has, the better off they're doing. Now, you might think since their horns are so large that they're probably pretty heavy, but they're actually almost hollow on the inside. The horns have a honeycomb pattern going on within them, and the cattle will have their blood circulate through there to help regulate their body temperatures. Each horn by itself weighs only about 5 pounds. I do see something coming up in just a moment on the left-hand side, friends, and it does look like it's at least one Maasai giraffe. Now, we can identify that these are Maasai giraffe just by the spots, even from this distance, because the spots are a little more messy and jagged around the edges. Oh, there's a whole tower over here on the left. So a group of giraffe are called a tower, but a scary group of giraffe are called a tower of terror. Thank you for those, yeah, thanks, Halloween jokes. Anyway, giraffe can grow to be up to 20 feet tall. They spend a majority of their days eating, about 18 hours. Meanwhile, they'll only spend about 30 minutes a day sleeping. They get their 30 minutes of sleep through incredibly short little power naps that last only about 15 seconds long each. So what they do is they'll be eating and eating and eating, and then all of a sudden they'll close their eyes, and 15 seconds later they'll open their eyes back up and continue eating as if nothing happened. Now those teeny tiny antelope that we passed while I was talking are called springbok, and they are fully grown at about 3 feet tall. They get that name because they do this cool thing where they'll jump about 6 feet straight up in the air and simultaneously about 13 feet forwards, making them one of the fastest antelope in all of Africa. Now we have entered into Monkey Point, and Monkey Point, interestingly enough, is a fairly decent place to see some monkeys. Just like if you take a look to the left, there are a few mandrills in that clearing. Now mandrills are the largest monkeys in the world. Males will grow to be up to 100 pounds, while females will stay smaller at about 25 to 30 pounds. Just over in the tree clearing, you might even notice some mandrills with brilliant red and blue markings on their faces. But they only get more red and blue when they're angered or excited. But if you take a look to the right-hand side, guys, there is an African elephant in the distance. Let's see if we can get a better view of him. I am assuming that that is a male elephant, as he is all by himself. Male elephants will leave their herds at about 13 to 14 years old and either go off entirely on their own like that guy or into a small bachelor group of elephants. Now, my regular road does look to be closed, and I don't think my truck can make that jump. So, since there is another truck behind us, I guess we do have to take the old service bridge just straight ahead. Anyway, Harambe Wildlife Reserve was founded back in 1971, and since our opening in 1971, our service bridge has undergone a total of 0 refurbishments. So, friends, we're gonna take this bridge poly-poly, in other words, very slowly. Okay, it definitely looks better than I remember it though. Doesn't sound better though. Oh, and they've added new zip ties. Awesome. Oh no, everyone, lean to the right. Lean to the right. Oh, everyone good? Didn't lose anyone this time? Nope. Awesome. We're loaded. Okay. Whew. Well, now that we have gotten past that totally safe and not dangerous at all bridge, we have come to some red clay pits, and red clay is essential to the everyday diet of elephants. It'll provide them with minerals that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get from their everyday vegetation consumption. Let's see if we can spot some more members of the herd a little further down the way. Now, like I mentioned before, male elephants will leave their herds earlier on, but females will stay behind with their families for the rest of their lives. The only other animals that will stay with their families as long as, if not longer, than elephants are human beings. Alright, it looks like the rest of the herd is a little further down the way. Now, one thing that I do want you guys to pay attention to once we get the better view is that the backs of some of these elephants might look a little bit discolored. That's not actually the skin on their backs though, because elephants have very, very sensitive skin, so they like to throw dirt and mud on their backs to use sort of like a natural sunscreen. On top of that, another way they like to stay cool is by flapping their ears back and forth. Their ears are home to tons and tons of blood vessels, and by flapping their ears, they'll be cooling down the blood within them, which will then circulate throughout the rest of their bodies, cooling down their overall temperature over time. Now it looks like we're going to get the best view of the rest of the elephants just in a moment while we circle around this flamboyance of Greater Flamingo. Greater Flamingo are the largest flamingos in the world, and also the palest in pink color. They get that pale pink color from a nutrient known as beta-carotene, which is found in brine shrimp, a huge staple in their everyday diets. Now you might notice some grayish-whitish flamingos on the island, and those are hatchlings, which means that they're newly hatched baby flamingos, and they'll get their light pink color within a year to a year and a half of life. Really taking the phrase, "you are what you eat," to an entirely new level. a couple different creatures. There are a few zebras as well as a white rhino. Now, zebras are fairly docile creatures for the most part. However, when push comes to shove, they are very good at sticking up for themselves, as they have a hind-leg kick that is so powerful, it's been known to break the jaw of lions. White rhinos don't actually get their name because they're white in skin tone. This guy is actually covered in mud, and when they're not, they're about the same skin color as black rhinos. But they get the name white from the Afrikaans word "wyd," which translates meaning wide or broad, referring to the shape and size of their mouths. Now, fortunately, they are a lot larger than their cousins, the black rhino, so they're not poached nearly as often, although they do also have horns made out of keratin. And unfortunately, the only threat that either rhinoceros species faces in the wild is from human beings. I think we're going to get a prolonged view, because if I heard correctly, there are some ostriches in the road just a few trucks in front. So we're going to hang tight right here. Feel free to observe those zebras and that white rhino. If you guys have any questions about any of the creatures we've seen, I can do my best to answer them. If not, just stay in your seats. Feel free to talk amongst one another, but please remain seated. And I do think we'll be moving in just a moment. To keep your eyes peeled in this clearing on the left, because there are a couple cheetahs. One is walking around and one's laying down in between a couple trees. Cheetahs are the fastest of the big cats. They can run speeds up to 60 miles an hour, but they're more of a short distance sprinter as opposed to a long distance marathoner. And to help them out with those short distance sprints, they do have non-retractable claws, unlike most other big cats, that give them a really good grip on the ground so they don't slip and fall as they run. Also, unlike most other big cats, they are daytime hunters. And to help them out with that, they've developed this black tear stain marking on either side of their snouts, so they're not squinting as they're hunting. It will reflect the sunlight away from their eyes. Now, this large rock formation coming up along our left is called a kopie. And kopies are also home to another big cat here in Africa. You might have heard of them. They're called the lion. Now, lions are nocturnal creatures, so if there are any, they're probably asleep. It's kind of the middle of the night for them. But do keep your eyes peeled as we circle around. I do think I spotted at least a female lioness over there on the kopie. Now, contrary to popular belief, it's actually the female lioness that does the majority of the hunting for the pride, while 9 times out of 10 the male lion will stay behind and sort of be like the stay-at-home dad for the cubs. A lion's roar can be heard from up to 5 miles away, and the Swahili word for lion is Simba. And it does look like the male lion's laying down next to her. Oh, and another female lioness as well. Now where you spot Simba, you'll sometimes spot Pumbaa. And coming up on the left looks like a warthog mother and some piglets. Now, while Simba means lion, Pumbaa doesn't actually mean warthog, but it does have a meaning in Swahili, and that is foolish, which fits the character pretty well. But warthogs are the largest burrowing creatures in all of Africa, and they create their burrows with their razor-sharp tusks. Now, over on the right-hand side are a couple antelope grazing, and those are called waterbuck. Waterbuck, interestingly enough, out of all the antelope species, do enjoy water the most. They'll make their homes near watery areas and stay there as long as possible. On top of that, they drink a lot more water than the average antelope. And their bodies secrete this oily, greasy substance, which we do think helps waterproof their coats. But even if it doesn't do that much, we know that it does not emit the most pleasant smell when it gets wet. So that keeps predators away from wanting to enjoy them for lunch. Now we are about to enter into the newest area of our reserve, and this next area is called Magadi Glen. Being the newest area, it is home to some of our newer creatures, so they can be a little more shy than others. So keep your eyes peeled. Take a good look, there is a creature walking along the distance on the right. It has a white and brown body with some very long thin horns, and it is called the scimitar horned oryx. Their native habitat is in the Sahara Desert, and because of that, their bodies are built to withstand incredible heats. They won't break a sweat until their internal body temperature hits over 116 degrees Fahrenheit, and can also go up to 9 months without drinking a single drop of water. Now friends, as we exit Magadi Glen, that does mean that our safari is coming to an end. But just because our safari is ending doesn't mean that our time here in Animal Kingdom is ending, and there are still so many opportunities to see so many more wonderful creatures throughout the day. One of my favorite places to go is Gorilla Falls Exploration Trail. They're home to a lot more African animals, and if you're lucky, you might even spot some gorillas. If you're interested in a more up-close and personal look at some creatures, I'm going to suggest heading over to Rafiki's Planet Watch. They're home to the affection section, which is sort of like a petting zoo. Oh, I'm so sorry, I just looked at the time. It actually might not be open, but instead head over to Maharaja Jungle Trek, because they are still open this evening, and they're home to Asian animals like even tigers. You can earn some Wilderness Explorer badges at both of those locations. If I have any Wilderness Explorers on board with me, the name of the trek you are on today is Simba Run. That'll be found on page 15 of your Wilderness Explorer guidebooks. Now here in Harambe, we don't like to say goodbye because goodbyes are far too sad and far too final, and we do believe that no two safaris are quite the same, so we hope to see you back here again someday. Instead of goodbye, we like to use the Swahili phrase Kwaherini, which means to go well. So, please make sure that you guys grab all of your personal items. I don't want you to leave any of those behind. And Kwaherini, friends, go well. Go wild, but not too wild. It is a family jungle out there after all. And enjoy the rest of your day here at Disney's Animal Kingdom. Asante Sana, friends, thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a happy Halloween.
It's like pick that up and toss that over there. It looks like Fred.
It is Fred.
Look at the face. It's Poe and Fred's face. So cool. And there we go. There you go, my friend. Thank you. Oh my God.
So you see 100. Perfect.
Watch right here. And pop open. Come on. Ah, there we go. There you go, guys.